Let us explore how I release guilt daily. What if guilt was not a problem? What if we evolved the capacity to serve, to experience guilt, to enhance our ability to cooperate with others? After all, intelligence alone isn't the reason why our species flourished. After all, it has been theorized that some of the proto-humans who came before us had actually had bigger brains, but they had no ability to communicate. We did. So it has been hypothesized that guilt can lubricate the gears of our communication and cooperation machine. So how are we going to cope with these strong feelings of guilt? Some would say contemplate, some would say argue and reason against the feelings of guilt. However, doing so is a great and profoundly efficient way of exhausting our prefrontal cortex, which will trigger our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. So the great irony is that when we try to contemplate our way out of guilt, we find ourselves feeling even more difficult and destructive impulses. So what if there was a gentle solution that harmonized with the structures of our central nervous system? Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to support our capacity to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly and fleetingly. So it's not our job to seek and look and explore for every crumb of guilt. As we sit in meditation, different phenomena will arise fleetingly into our awareness. Different perceptions, different emotions, different intentions, different thoughts, different memories, different imaginings. Our job is to take a passive approach to this whole experience. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we access our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. This does not get rid of the experience of guilt, but number one, it helps us to cope with the presence of guilt. It helps to diminish the intensity of guilt, and it reduces the capacity of guilt to dominate or control our choices or our utterances or our deeds. So it cuts the marionette strings that would make of us a slave to our guilt. And so here's the funny thing. The more we practice mindfulness and meditation, the more we will notice that those self-same choices and utterances and deeds flow with the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. The more we are vulnerable to our impulses of guilt, and the more we relax and process them, the more informed our intuition becomes. This concludes our opening lesson. And now it's time for the main practice. It is Qui-Gon Jinn Tuesday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. So let's turn our attention to the latest iteration of easy meditation. Please chant with me. Whatever comes, may all beings let it come. Whatever stays, may all beings let it stay. Whatever goes, may all beings let it go. Welcome to the first quarter of the Dawn Mindful Crease Counting Meditation. This is a great time to review Bengali crease counting. Over the span of 12 inhalations, we could advance our right thumb in the following manner, beginning with our little finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We multiply this by 8 sets, and you've got 96 inhalations. We could keep track of those 8 sets on our left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sets of 12 inhalations each. The question remains, however, how are we to keep track of our first quarter? Simple. Rest the great knuckle at the base of, when we rest the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger, upon the tip of our left little finger, palms up in our lap. We gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce in the bladder region of our lower abdomen. Come, let us demystify enlightenment. Yes, the minions of religious patriarchy, those in the thrall of being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, insist that enlightenment is very difficult, it takes a very long time, and it's only for special people. But is that really what the Buddha taught? What if enlightenment was nothing more than mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? But what do we mean by mastery? No human infant is born knowing how to use the toilet, knowing how to brush their teeth, knowing how to tie their shoes, or knowing how to ride a bike. And yet by the time most humans are ready to enter first grade, they get so good at those 4 behaviors that they're able to practice them spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. According to the Buddha, that is the degree of mastery we can experience of the Eightfold Path within a week. The key to mastering the Eightfold Path lies in the Sevenfold's mindfulness and the Eightfold's meditation. Play with these every 12 hours, and the remaining 6 folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path take care of themselves. Let us view mindfulness through the lens of neuroscience after about 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. So I need to adjust something for a moment. Please bear with me. Let us explore the neuroscience of mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to effortlessly and automatically access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This sympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to help us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. But notice what? Notice mind's antics. Notice mind's antics of perception. You know, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. Every time we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we interrupt the habit of our cerebral cortex to compete with our sympathetic nervous system and give it the opportunity to cooperate. Now let us take a concise view of meditation. Every time we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we physically relax and mentally release what we noticed during our previous inhalation, to the point that what we noticed could fleetingly feel less tantalizing, less defining, and less permanent. Which of course relates directly to the first fold of the Eightfold Path, the deep familiarization with the literal impermanence that supports letting go. All of this which is made possible due to the mindfulness and meditation of the seventh and eighth folds. So together as a team, let us play with mindfulness and meditation right now. And as always, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist philosophy, or Buddhist meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. Let us chant a passage from the Song of Mahamudra, composed by Tilopa, translated by Chang, adapted and amplified by yours truly. Let us chant the 9th verse together. The great seal of Mahamudra's awareness and releases a mind that during its relaxing exhalation clings to naught. Thus practicing in a relatively short time, you could reach the Buddhahood of mastering the Eightfold Path. The practice of mantra incantations and paramita perfections, instruction in the sutra discourses and precepts, and teaching from the schools and scriptures will not bring realization of enlightenment's natural state. For if the mind, when filled with some desire, actively seeks a goal, it only obscures the light of awareness. Welcome to the second quarter of this early morning's mindful crease counting meditation. How are we going to keep track of the second quarter? By resting the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger, upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. Whoopsie. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce at the crown of our head. Let's begin by concisely reviewing mindfulness. As we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we are wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics. Now let us explore meditation through the lens of neuroscience. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is divided between the lower third and the upper third of our spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system is wired to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. When we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we interrupt the habit of our cerebral cortex competing with our parasympathetic nervous system, and thus set space for these two to cooperate. As such, we find ourselves mentally releasing what we noticed during our previous inhalation, as if what we noticed was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, any good English teacher will remind us that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask the question, What is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is quite non-graspable to the hand? And so now you see that emptiness is not something literal to be analyzed or believed, but is simply a figure of speech for something referring to that which we observe regularly. And as such, we experience the first fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, deep familiarization with the figurative emptiness that supports our mental release, simply due to our practice. Of mindfulness, and meditation. Therefore, together as a team, let us play with mindfulness and meditation right now. Let's chant the 10th and 11th verses of the Song of Mahamudra. One who keeps tantric precepts yet falls prey to the tyranny of discriminations. Duality of dread and desire betrays a vows of awakening, of simply finding satisfaction in awareness and release. Therefore cease all neurotic activity, abandon the tyranny of desire. Let thoughts rise and fall as they will, like ocean waves. One who never forsakes her practice of relaxing into the non-abiding emptiness of that which is ever-changing, nor forsakes the principles of non-duality of all that arises, upholds the tantric precepts. They who abandon the tyranny of craving and clinging after this or that perceive the real meaning given in the scriptures. Welcome to the third quarter of this early morning's mindful crease counting meditation. How were we to keep track of the third quarter? By resting the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger upon the tip of our left ring finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so gently invites the real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce in the navel region of our mid-abdomen. Let us explore the experience and then transcendence of duality. When we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, well, of course, we can vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice a good many things. In addition to noticing perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination, we can observe dualities such as the external and the internal, the physical and the mental, the pleasurable and the painful, the interesting and the boring, the glorious and the grotesque, as well as the fundamental duality of simply desiring some things and dreading others, including the very subtle resistance we often feel, resisting the actual or potential absence of what we desire, and subtly resisting the actual or potential presence of what we dread. What are we to do with this? Every time we silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we physically relax and mentally release what we noticed during our previous inhalation, whether what we noticed was a dread or a desire or resistance. But wait, does that mean we're supposed to be like a doormat, forever having muddy boots scraped across our face? No, and here's why. The more we practice mindfulness, in meditation, the more we experience our choices and utterances and deeds flowing from the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, which must not be confused with the scattered spontaneity we might experience after our fourth consecutive espresso, but rather the centered spontaneity of the sixth fold of the Buddha's eightfold path that is the effortless product of playing with mindfulness and meditation about once every 12 hours or so. Therefore, together, let us play with mindfulness and meditation right now. And yes, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist philosophy, or Buddhist meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. I'm in the middle of teaching class now. I'll get back to you in about 20 minutes or so. Let's chant the 12th verse of Tilopa's Song of Mahamudra. In great seal of Mahamudra's awareness and release, all ones so constants opened. In Mahamudra, one is released from the prisons of this world's tyranny. This is the Buddha's teaching, or Dharma supreme torch. Those who rejected are fools who ever wallow in misery and sorrow. Welcome to this early morning's fourth quarter of mindful crease counting meditation. To keep track of this fourth quarter, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger, upon the tip of our left middle finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so, we gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce in the heart region of our chest. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. Since the Neolithic Revolution, most societies have trained most people to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And when these minions of religious patriarchy strive to practice meditation, they sincerely believe that they are to actively focus and actively analyze. The only way any brain can do this is by relying upon discrete pathways, such as those found in regions such as the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. We fatigue our prefrontal cortex at our peril, for doing so triggers our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression, which most people would agree is the opposite of peace and love. Fortunately, there is a threefold solution. Simply by silently and mentally reciting the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we are wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics. And by silently and mentally reciting the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we are wired to physically relax and mentally release all that anxiety and all that aggression. But we also release the tendencies of that anxiety and aggression to control our choices and our utterances and our deeds. But there's a third benefit. Play with mindfulness and meditation, and we will stimulate our anterior cingulate gyrus, this thing that kind of looks like the letter C, this thing that functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, the root of love and compassion. How important is this? It's so important that love and kindness constitute 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, including kind intention, kind communication, kind conduct, and commerce that is as cooperative as it is kind. This is exactly why the late Tulku Thondup insisted that the highest love is the spontaneous and uncontrived overflow of mindfulness and meditation. keeping that in mind. I guess it would have been better if I said mindfulness. And meditation. That would have been more visually compelling. Wouldn't you agree? So together as a team, let us practice. Right now, remember, it's not our job to strive to love anybody. We just play with mindfulness meditation and let autopilot do the heavy lifting for us. As always, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist philosophy, or Buddhist meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.